My parents swapped the locks while I was at work. The sheriff's documents left them nauseous. Have you ever had a moment where everything you thought you knew about your family, about love, about loyalty just shattered? I did. It was the morning after a brutal 12-hour ER shift, hands still smelling of antiseptic, when I pulled up to my childhood home and found my entire life, my clothes, my books, my memories, strewn across the lawn like garbage. My own father had changed the locks and then texted me, "Your room is Megan's now. Don't make a scene." He thought I'd quietly pick up my pieces. He had no idea I was about to drop a bombshell that would shake his entire world, starting with a sheriff at his door and ending with a plain white envelope from the IRS. Trust me, you need to hear this. Let me take you back to a Tuesday in March, the morning everything I thought I knew about family collapsed. It all started 3 years before that, right after nursing school. I'd moved back home. Not because I couldn't afford my own place. I could. But my father, Gerald Warren, sat me down at the kitchen table, looking earnest, and said, "Whitney, why waste money on strangers when you can help family?" It sounded so right at the time. I was 23, fresh out of school, starting brutal overnight shifts in the ER at St. Mary's. The thought of coming home to a familiar place, with food in the fridge and a washer that actually worked without demanding quarters? It felt practical. Smart, even. So we made a deal, $1,200 a month. First of the month, no lease, no contract, just a handshake and a Zelle transfer. And every single time, without fail, I typed rent in that memo line. $1,200. I knew it was steep, more than a one-bedroom apartment in our area. But I told myself I wasn't just paying rent, I was investing in us, helping with the mortgage, being a good daughter. And being a good daughter? Oh, I redefined that phrase. I'd finish those exhausting 12-hour night shifts, drive home at 7 a.m., and before I could even think about sleep, I'd make breakfast for the whole house. Eggs, toast, coffee, on the table by 7:30.
Every
Single
day.
Wednesdays were laundry day, my laundry day for everyone. Saturdays, I scrubbed the bathrooms. And taking out the trash? That was my job too, because nobody else ever seemed to remember. The kicker? Not once, not in 3 years, did I hear a single thank you. I'm not exaggerating.
Not one time.
My sister, Megan, she's 23, 2 years younger than me. She lived in the room right across the hall. And she paid exactly nothing.
0.
I mustered up the courage to ask my father about it once. You know, that careful way you ask about something you already know the painful answer to. He didn't even glance up from the TV. "She's still finding herself, Whit. Don't be petty." Don't be petty. I clung to the hope that it was temporary, that eventually he'd see how hard I worked, how much I contributed. I was wrong about so many things back then, but I was most catastrophically wrong about that. Then came February. Megan got engaged. Her boyfriend, Tyler Brooks, a 25-year-old car salesman from the Toyota dealership, proposed at a Red Lobster on Valentine's Day. Megan plastered 14 photos all over social media, 312 likes. My father? He reacted like she'd just won the Nobel Prize. Literally. Within a week, Gerald was orchestrating an engagement party. 30 guests, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, his poker buddies. He ordered a custom banner from Etsy. He even dedicated an entire Saturday to repainting the living room. Agreeable gray, Megan's choice. I watched him, paint cans in hand, whistling. And I couldn't help but remember. Just 2 years prior, I'd asked him, begged him, to repaint my own bedroom. There was a brown water stain on the ceiling, the size of a dinner plate, a constant, ugly reminder. He'd promised to get to it. He never did. But for Megan's party, for her chosen shade of gray,
He was all in.
2 coats, blue painter's tape meticulously lining every baseboard, a picture of domestic bliss. Later, while I was scrubbing the kitchen floor for her party, Megan breezed through. "Whit," she chirped, "can you do those little cucumber sandwich things? You're good at this stuff." Not "can you help?" or "would you mind?" Just a casual expectation. And me? I just said, "Sure," because that's what I always did. I always said sure. The week before the big party, I came home from a shift, still half asleep on my feet, and found Gerald standing in my bedroom doorway with a tape measure. He was meticulously measuring the wall where my desk sat. A cold dread crept in. "What are you doing?" asked, my voice thin. He barely looked at me. "Just thinking about storage," he mumbled, rolling up the tape and walking past without another word. I stood there, still in my scrubs, and felt it. A premonition, a creeping, unsettling sensation I couldn't quite name. Storage, that's the word he used. I brushed it off. I shouldn't have. I absolutely should have. Then came Tuesday, March 11th. I clocked out of St. Mary's at 6:52 a.m. It had been a hell of a shift, a motorcycle accident, a grandmother coding at 3 a.m. We brought her back, barely. My hands, usually so steady through 12 hours of trauma and adrenaline, started shaking the moment I turned onto my street. And then I saw it. The boxes. Cardboard boxes, 3 black trash bags, a laundry basket spilling my clothes onto the wet grass. My nursing textbooks, their spines already warping in the morning dew, stacked carelessly on the walkway. My first thought, we've been robbed. But then I saw the lock. Brand new. Shiny brass. I put my key in. It didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. Just a cold, final click. My phone vibrated. One text. From my father. "Your room is Megan's now. Come get your stuff from the lawn. Don't make a scene." I read it 3 times, my brain struggling to process the words, the utter cruelty. My thumb hovered over the call button, trembling. Then, a second text. From my mother, Carol. "Honey, your father already decided it's better this way." Better, that's the word she used. Better. I sank onto the cold concrete porch step, my scrubs offering no warmth. My stethoscope was still around my neck, a heavy, meaningless weight. I stared at my life, my clothes, my books, a small wooden box holding my college graduation tassel and my grandmother's earrings, now sitting in a muddy puddle. I sat there for precisely 11 minutes. I know, because I watched the clock on my dashboard, feeling utterly numb. 11 minutes of deafening silence. And in that silence, something profound shifted. In that moment, I did something I had never done in 26 years of being Gerald Warren's daughter. I stopped trying to be the good one. I didn't go inside. I couldn't. Instead, I retreated to my car, started the engine for warmth, and did the math. 3 years. $1,200 a month. That's $43,200. $43,200 I'd paid Gerald Warren to live in a room he just handed over to my sister's fiancé. No warning. No discussion. Absolutely no refund. My savings account? A meager $2,100. 3 years of helping my dad, and that's what I had left. Not enough for a first and last month's deposit anywhere decent. Not even enough for a bed frame. I looked back at the lawn. My photo album, the one with pictures from my nursing school graduation, Grandma Ruth pinning my cap, it was already dark with moisture. The pages would curl. They'd never lie flat again. Ruined.
My phone rang.
It was Gerald. I let it ring, 5 agonizing rings, straight to voicemail. I played his message in the car, windows up, needing a buffer from his voice. "Whitney, don't be dramatic. Come pick up your things before the neighbors start asking questions. And don't call your grandmother about this. It's none of her business. Don't call your grandmother." He said it like a threat, a panicked warning. He knew exactly who would take my side, and he was trying to cut her off at the pass. I turned off the engine, plunging the car into silence, and just stared at the house I'd helped pay for. The new brass lock glinted in the morning light, a defiant middle finger aimed straight at me. He'd planned this. Waited until I was safely into a 12-hour overnight shift, knowing I wouldn't just walk in. He moved my entire life onto the lawn while I was busy putting IVs into strangers' arms, literally saving lives. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. Quietly.
Permanently.
I drove straight back to the hospital. Not for a shift, but because it was the only place that felt remotely safe. The break room on the third floor, with its worn couch smelling faintly of stale coffee and old vinyl. I sat there and I just leaked. No dramatic sobs, just tears streaming down my face, soaking my scrubs as I clutched a paper cup of water I never even drank. Around 8:15, Donna Castillo found me. Donna's a charge nurse on the day shift, 34, Puerto Rican, built like a firecracker, and married to a real estate attorney who argues for a living. She took one look at me, her eyes sharp and knowing, and quietly closed the break room door.
Talk, she commanded. So I did.
Everything. The changed locks, the brutal texts, my entire life sprawled on the lawn. Donna didn't offer pity. She didn't say, "Oh, how terrible." Instead, she asked a question that cut right through my haze of grief. Zelle or Venmo? Zelle, I mumbled. Every month. And what did you write in the memo? My voice caught. Rent. She pulled out her phone and called her husband, Marco, right there.
Speakerphone.
Marco Castillo. Real estate attorney. 7 years, specializing in tenant disputes. He asked me 3 questions, quick and precise. Do you have a lease?
No.
How long have you been paying? 3 years. Do you have proof of payment?
Yes.
36 Zelle transactions. Every single one labeled rent. The line went quiet for a beat. Then Marco's voice, clear and firm. He just did an illegal lockout on a tenant at will. That's a violation in your state. Doesn't matter that it's family. Doesn't matter there's no paper lease. I just stared at the phone, a sliver of hope piercing through my numbness. What do I do? Tonight, you screenshot every single Zelle transaction. And whatever you do not delete that text he sent you. He paused, then added, one more thing, Whitney. Has your father been reporting that rental income on his taxes? I didn't know, but I had a gut feeling Marco already did. I owed it to myself. One last try. One final attempt to resolve this before doing anything drastic. So, that Tuesday night, sitting in Donna's quiet guest room, phone fully charged, I called Gerald. He picked up on the second ring. Dad, I started, my voice carefully neutral. I need to talk about the room. Nothing to talk about. He cut me off flatly. Decisions made. I've been paying you rent for 3 years. I pushed back, a tremor in my voice. You were helping with the mortgage. That's not rent.
You texted me, Dad.
Every month. Rent's due by the 5th. Don't be late again. Silence. 3 full seconds. I counted them. Don't twist my words, Whitney. I just need 30 days, I pleaded. That's all I'm asking. Your sister needs the room now. You're 26. Figure it out. Click. He hung up. Gerald Warren. The man who lectured me about manners, who once spanked me for slamming a door because we don't disrespect this house, just hung up on his daughter, who was simply asking for legal notice. I set the phone down. My hands, I noticed, were perfectly steady. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Not Gerald. Megan.
Hey, Whit.
Can you come get the rest of your stuff tomorrow morning? Tyler's moving his desk in. Tyler's desk in my room. The room with the water stain my father never bothered to paint for me, but miraculously repainted in 48 hours for my sister's fiancé. I didn't reply to Megan. Instead, I opened my banking app. I scrolled through 3 years of Zelle transfers. 1,200, 1,200, 1,200. A steady, sickening rhythm. At 9:47 p.m., I took my first screenshot. I didn't stop until I had all 36. Gerald wasn't just going to kick me out quietly. Oh no. By Wednesday morning, my phone was practically vibrating off the table with texts from relatives I hadn't heard from in months. Aunt Sandra, Gerald's younger sister, the self-appointed family commentator from Delaware, chimed in at 7:15 a.m. Your dad says you're being difficult about moving out. Honey, Megan's getting married. Just be happy for her. 20 minutes later, Uncle Rick, Gerald's hunting buddy and brother-in-law, piled on. Gerald says you're demanding money from him. That's not like you, Whit. Demanding money. That's how he spun it. I scrolled through 6 texts from 4 different relatives in just 2 hours. All variations of the same cruel theme. Whitney is selfish. Whitney is jealous. Whitney is making Gerald's life difficult. Not a single person asked me what happened. Not one phone call to hear my side. Gerald had told his version, and the family was passing it around like a poisoned casserole dish at Thanksgiving. Everyone took a serving. Nobody bothered to check the ingredients. He wasn't just evicting me. He was meticulously rewriting the story, ensuring that by the time I even thought about fighting back, I'd already be the villain. I sat at Donna's kitchen table, staring at my phone, and felt that old, familiar ache. That old instinct, the fixer in me, the peacemaker, the girl who always smoothed things over. She screamed to call everyone, to explain, to yell, "That's not what happened. Let me tell you my side." But I put the phone face down, took a deep breath, then picked it up again, and opened my Zelle history. 36 transactions. $43,200. Every screenshot meticulously saved to a cloud backup. Every memo line screaming rent. Every date. Every dollar. Gerald was busy building a narrative. But me? I was building a file. Wednesday morning, I returned to the house, a knot of dread in my stomach, to collect what little remained. Gerald had moved the rest of my boxes, not onto the porch, not in the garage, but right on the front walkway, exposed for all the world to see. One box was already splitting, its contents threatening to spill. Mrs. Patterson, the neighborhood oracle from across the street, was out watering her azaleas. She watched me pull up. She watched me pop the trunk. She didn't look away. Then Gerald emerged, a fake smile plastered on his face, performing for the street. "She's just picking up the rest of her things," he boomed to Mrs. Patterson, loud enough for the whole block to hear. "Kids, can't stay forever."
I didn't respond. Couldn't.
I just grabbed the first box. Inside, winter clothes, a crock pot, a picture frame with a fresh crack down the glass. My graduation photo, with Grandma Ruth. "Dad, I tried," my voice tight. "I need to check my room for anything left behind." "Room's already Megan's," he snapped back, dismissively. "Nothing of yours in there." As I walked past the living room, I glanced through the window. My bedroom. The room I'd paid over $43,000 for. It was repainted. New curtains. A new bedspread. And Tyler's desk, already installed against the far wall. In 2 days, he'd erased my life and converted it into someone else's office. Gerald turned back to Mrs. Patterson, shrugging, a triumphant grin on his face. "Tough love," he announced. "Tough love." He called it tough love. I loaded the last box into my trunk.
I didn't slam it.
I closed it gently, deliberately. I wanted him to think I was giving up. I wasn't. But I did make a point to get Mrs. Patterson's number from the neighborhood directory later. She was standing right there. She saw the boxes. She heard every word. Witnesses, remember. That night, Marco Castillo, Donna's brilliant husband, spread a yellow legal pad across Donna's kitchen table. He sat across from me, methodical, like a mechanic explaining what was wrong under the hood. 3 moves, he said, holding up a finger. Each one separate. Each one legal. And each one is going to get his undivided attention. First, he held up one finger, an illegal lockout complaint. Your state requires a minimum 30-day written notice to terminate a tenancy at will. He gave you 0. That's a statutory violation. The court can award damages, plus penalties. He held up a second finger. Small claims court. You're owed $43,200 in rent paid, without a lease or legal tenancy agreement. The state cap for small claims is $10,000, so we file there first. The rest can go to civil court later. Then the third finger. IRS Form 211. A whistleblower report. My breath hitched. He received $43,000 in rental income over 3 years. And I'd bet my briefcase he reported none of it. That's unreported taxable income. I stared at the yellow pad. 3 bullet points. 3 simple lines that could utterly dismantle my father's entire sense of authority. The IRS one, I whispered, my voice barely audible. That could destroy him. Marco didn't blink. He didn't hesitate when he threw your life on the lawn. Donna, quiet until now, set a glass of water in front of me. Her voice was gentle, but firm. "You're not being cruel, Whitney. You're being accurate." I opened my laptop. The folder was already built. I'd been meticulously organizing it since Tuesday night. 36 cell screenshots, bank statements with matching dates, Gerald's texts, rent's due by the 5th, the lockout text, "Your room is Megan's now." A handwritten, dated timeline of every single event. Marco reviewed every file, his expression unreadable. When he finished, he closed the laptop, a decisive nod. "Print everything. 2 copies. We go to the notary first thing Thursday morning." Thursday afternoon, I called Grandma Ruth. She answered, as always, mid-sentence, like we'd never stopped talking. I already heard Gerald's version, "Sweetheart." She cut in, her voice crackling with familiar wisdom. "Let me guess, you left because you're ungrateful and jealous of your sister." I almost laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "That's not what happened, Grandma." "I know it's not. I know my son-in-law. He tells people what makes him look good. Been doing it since the day he married your mother." I told her everything. The locks, the texts, the lawn, my soaked belongings. She listened, silent, the way Grandma Ruth always does. She doesn't interrupt. She collects. When I finished, she said something that hit me like a revelation. "He did the same thing to his brother, you know." I didn't know. Eddie, Gerald's younger brother. They'd inherited their mother's duplex, a 50-50 split. Gerald moved in, started making decisions, and when Eddie dared to disagree, Gerald changed the locks on his half. Told the whole family Eddie had abandoned the property. Eddie didn't fight it. Lost everything. They haven't spoken in 15 years. Grandma let that sit, heavy in the air. "Don't do what Eddie did, honey." Eddie stayed quiet. Lost everything. My throat tightened. "I'm not staying quiet," I vowed. "Good." Then she said something that hit harder than all the rest. "Your mother called me last night. She knows it's wrong, Whitney. She knows. She just won't say it out loud." My own mother. She knew. She knew it was wrong. And she let it happen. She watched Gerald change the locks, watched him drag my life out onto the lawn. And she chose peace with him over justice for me. That was the deepest cut. More than the locks, more than the texts, more than the ruined graduation photos. My mother's deafening silence. Megan's engagement party. Saturday night. 30 guests. The house, my house, was lit up like a magazine spread. Twinkling string lights on the porch, a fancy welcome sign with Tyler and Megan's names in gold calligraphy. Cars lined both sides of the street. I wasn't invited, of course. I only knew about it because Aunt Sandra, bless her heart, accidentally included me in a group text with the address and time. She deleted it about 30 seconds later, but I'd seen it. I didn't go. I didn't even drive by. I just sat in Donna's guest room, watching the clock, a hollow ache in my chest. At 8:47 p.m., my phone lit up. Instagram notification. My cousin Jamie, 19, Sandra's youngest, had posted a story from inside the party. I tapped it. There was Gerald, standing in the living room, holding a champagne flute, giving a toast. The camera was shaky, the audio tinny, but I heard every single word. "Family is everything," he beamed, that proud, performing smile on his face. "We take care of each other in this house." 30 people raised their glasses. And behind him, through the open doorway of what used to be my room, I could see them. The new curtains, Tyler's desk, a framed photo of Megan and Tyler now hanging where my nursing school diploma used to be. Gerald lifted his glass higher. "Megan, sweetheart, you deserve the world. This house will always be your home. This house will always be your home." He'd never said that to me. Not in 26 years. Not in $43,200 worth of rent payments. Not once. I watched the story twice. Then I closed Instagram and stared at the ceiling, tears blurring my vision. Somewhere across town, in a house I'd poured my heart and money into, my father was toasting to family. In a room he stole from me. In front of 30 people who either didn't know or didn't care that his elder daughter was sitting alone, heartbroken in a borrowed bed. He toasted to family in the very room he took from me. Jamie called me Sunday morning. Her voice was tight, uncomfortable, like she was carrying a plate she knew she was about to drop. I need to tell you something, Whit, she stammered. About what what Uncle Gerald said at the party. Tell me, I said, bracing myself. He stood up during the toast, she continued, and told everyone you moved out because you wanted independence. He said she didn't even bother to congratulate her sister. Those were his exact words. I closed my eyes, a wave of nausea washing over me. Aunt Sandra backed him up. She said, some children only think about themselves. And Uncle Rick just nodded along, like it was an undeniable fact. Did anyone, I choked out, ask about me? My side. No, Jamie whispered, her voice barely audible. Nobody. It was messed up, Whit. Everyone just believed him. I sat on the edge of the bed, pressing my palm flat against my knee, trying to stop the frantic bouncing. There's one more thing, Jamie added, her voice dropping lower. Tyler was talking to Rick's son about the room. He called it huge. Said it was perfect for a home office. A home office?
Not even a nursery.
Not a room for a future child. Tyler Brooks, a car salesman who'd known my family for barely 11 months, was now sitting at a desk in a room I'd paid rent on for 3 years, and he was bragging about the square footage. My father didn't just give away my room. He gave away my name at a party I wasn't even invited to. He rewrote 3 years of rent payments into a disgusting narrative about a selfish daughter who couldn't be happy for her sister. And he truly believed that was the end of it. He thought I'd just swallow it, like I'd swallowed everything else my entire life. He was about to find out what happens when the quiet daughter finally stops swallowing. Monday morning, 6:12 a.m. I'd just staggered off another night shift, 14 hours this time, a multi-car pileup on the interstate. My hands still smelled like betadine, that familiar hospital scent. I sat at Donna's kitchen table, my laptop open. The folder I'd created, simply titled Case, glowed on the desktop. It contained 36 Zelle screenshots, bank statements with highlighted transactions, Gerald's text screenshotted and time-stamped, cloud backed up. The notarized copies Marco had helped me prepare, and a meticulous, handwritten timeline of every infuriating event since March 11th. Donna came downstairs at 6:30. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just poured 2 cups of coffee, set one in front of me, and sat down.
We didn't speak.
She just sat. And sometimes, that's what courage looks like. Someone quietly sitting by your side while you make the hardest decision of your life. At 6:45, I called Marco. I'm ready, I said, my voice steady. He didn't hesitate. Courthouse opens at 8:30. I showered, then pulled on the cleanest scrubs I had, the only professional clothes not wadded up in a trash bag. I dried my hair. I looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't want revenge. No, revenge is loud. A screaming phone call at midnight, a dramatic scene at a party, a furious social media post. What I wanted was simpler, sharper. I wanted what I was owed. Paperwork. Documentation. I wanted a judge to read the word rent 36 times and force my father to explain. There's a difference. I picked up the thick manila folder. Donna stood at the door. I'll be here when you get back. I drove to the courthouse, windows down. The cold, sharp March air a welcome slap to my face. My hands were steady on the wheel. They'd been steady all night. They weren't going to shake now. The county courthouse, a squat brick building on Elm Street, with a metal detector at the entrance and fluorescent lights that made everyone look perpetually tired. I arrived at 8:22, for people ahead of me at the clerk's window. I held the heavy manila envelope, its weight almost comforting. When I reached the counter, a woman with reading glasses and a name tag reading Dolores looked at me with that patient, flat expression all clerks master, ready to be bored. What are we filing today? She asked. 3 things, I said, my voice firm. An unlawful eviction complaint, a small claims petition, and I need the forms for an IRS whistleblower report. Dolores raised an eyebrow, a flicker of something in her eyes. Just one. I opened the envelope. I laid out the Zelle screenshots. 36 pages, chronological, highlighted. The text messages, printed and notarized. The bank statements. The timeline. She put on her reading glasses and slowly, methodically, leafed through the stack. Page by careful page. "This is your father?" she asked, reading the text. "Your room is Megan's now." "Yes, ma'am." She looked up at me, not with pity, but with something that almost looked like respect. "This is more documentation than most people bring for a divorce. You have a paper trail most landlord-tenant attorneys would envy." "He created it himself," I said, a dry smile touching my lips. "Every Zelle memo says rent. Every text confirms the arrangement." Dolores nodded. "Small claims cap in the state is $10,000. You'll want to look into civil court for the remainder." "I know," I replied. "This is just the start." She stamped the first form, then the second, then the third. "There's a statutory penalty for unlawful lockout," she added, "on top of whatever damages you're awarded." I signed my name 3 times. My hand didn't shake once. 4 days later, Friday. I wasn't there to see it myself. I was on another night shift, immersed in 12 hours of beeping monitors and fluorescent-lit mercy. But Marco called me at 9:14 a.m. with the update. The sheriff's deputy arrived at Gerald's house at 8:45 in the morning. A marked patrol car. A full uniform. Broad daylight. Gerald was in the driveway, loading folding chairs into the garage, leftovers from the engagement party, still not put away. Uncle Rick was on the porch, sipping coffee. Aunt Sandra was visible through the kitchen window. The deputy walked right up the driveway, official-looking paperwork in hand. "Gerald Warren?" "Yeah," Gerald replied, probably annoyed. "You've been served." Gerald took the papers. And according to Uncle Rick, who told Aunt Sandra, who told Jamie, who then told me, Gerald's face went crimson before he even finished the first page. He just stood there, right in the driveway, flipping through the stack. Unlawful eviction complaint. Small claim summons for $10,000. And then the IRS referral notice. He sank onto the porch steps, hard, like his knees had just given out. Uncle Rick set his coffee mug down. "Gerald, what is it?" Gerald didn't answer. He just stared at the papers, turning them over and over, as if reading them again might somehow change what they said. Sandra came rushing out the front door. "What's going on? Who is that?" Gerald looked up, his voice cracking on the first word. "She's suing me. My own daughter is suing me." For 30 years, Gerald Warren's word had been law in that family. He dictated Thanksgiving seating arrangements. He decided when the porch light went off. He decided whose room belonged to whom. But on that Friday morning, standing in his own driveway, his coffee growing cold, he finally found out that the actual law profoundly disagreed. My phone didn't stop ringing all day Friday. Uncle Rick was the first. I picked up. "Whitney, what did you do?" he demanded. "I filed what was legal and accurate, Uncle Rick. He's your father, and I was his tenant for 3 years. Click. He hung up. Aunt Sandra, no doubt, called my mother. And my mother called me crying. Not an angry cry, but that helpless, desperate kind. The sound of a woman who'd spent 30 years meticulously avoiding the very moment she was now trapped in. "Whitney, please, can you take it back?" she sobbed. "There's nothing to take back, Mom. It's filed." Then came Megan. Her voice shrilled through the phone like a blaring car alarm. "You're ruining my engagement. You know that, right? This is about you being jealous. It's always been about you being jealous." "Megan," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "This is about $43,000 and an illegal eviction. I'll see Dad in court." She sputtered something about me being selfish and dramatic. I simply said goodbye and placed the phone back on the nightstand. Gerald called last. 9:18 p.m. He didn't yell. That actually surprised me. His voice was tight, pressurized, the voice of a man trying desperately not to scream. "You bring the IRS into my house?" "Into my house." "You brought my belongings onto the lawn, Dad." I shot back, my own voice ice cold. Same energy. That money was between us. It wasn't income. I paused for a moment, letting his words hang in the air. I'd be careful saying that out loud. I warned him. He didn't know I was recording. My state allows one-party consent. Every word he'd just uttered. That money was between us. It wasn't income, was now a time-stamped audio file, confirming he received the payments and considered them undeclared. I'd given him 3 years of respect. He'd given me a text message. We were done negotiating. 3 weeks later. Small claims courtroom, second floor, room 204. It was smaller than I'd imagined. No jury box, no gallery, just rows of hard wooden benches, a raised desk for the judge, and 2 tables facing forward. It smelled faintly of floor polish and old, stale paper. Gerald sat at the respondent's table.
Alone.
No lawyer. He'd proudly told Uncle Rick he didn't need one. I'm not hiring an attorney to fight my own kid, he'd scoffed. I sat at the petitioner's table, my manila folder neatly arranged, the printed timeline laid out. Marco had prepped me meticulously, but couldn't represent me in small claims. It was self-represented only in our jurisdiction. He sat in the benches behind me. Behind Gerald sat Carol, clutching her purse like a desperate flotation device. Megan, arms tightly crossed, jaw clenched. And in the very last row, Grandma Ruth. She'd taken an Uber. Nobody had invited her. Nobody had even told her the date. She found out from Jamie and came anyway. Judge Hernandez, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp reading glasses, looked over at me, her gaze piercing right through me. Miss Warren, she stated, present your case. I methodically laid out the 36 cell transactions, each one printed, dated, highlighted. Each memo, rent. I showed the text messages. I showed the timeline. I spoke for 11 minutes, my voice even, calm, without a single tremor. Judge Hernandez turned to Gerald. Mr. Warren, did your daughter pay you $1,200 a month? Gerald shifted uncomfortably in his chair. She was helping with the house, he mumbled. It wasn't rent. The judge picked up one of my printed text messages. She read it aloud. Rent's due by the 5th. Don't be late again. She looked at him over her glasses, her expression unyielding. You used the word rent, Mr. Warren. She used the word rent. The transfers say rent. By any reasonable standard, this was a tenancy. Gerald opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Judge Hernandez didn't deliberate long. I'm ruling in favor of the petitioner. Mr. Warren, you established a month-to-month tenancy through your own words and conduct. You terminated that tenancy without legal notice. You performed an unlawful lockout. You are hereby ordered to pay $10,000, the statutory maximum in this court, in damages plus the lockout penalty as provided under state statute. She set down her pen. Miss Warren, you may pursue the remaining balance through civil court. Gerald stood up, so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. This is family business, not court business, he exclaimed, his voice rising. Judge Hernandez didn't blink. It became court business when you changed the locks, Mr. Warren. Sit down. He sank back into his seat. Behind me, I heard Carol make a small, choked sound. Not a word, just a breath catching in her throat. Megan was silently crying, mascara tracking dark lines down her cheeks. Not for me, I knew. For the spectacle. For the fact that people she knew were in this room, hearing these numbers. But the moment, the real moment I will carry with me forever, happened in the back row. Grandma Ruth stood up slowly. 79 years old, with a bad hip, holding the bench for balance. She walked forward, past Carol, past Megan until she was standing right beside me at the petitioner's table. She didn't say a word. She just took my hand. Her fingers were cool and steady, a grounding force. Then she turned, and she looked at Carol. I raised you better than this, Carol. You watched it happen. My mother's face crumbled. She looked down at her lap, shrinking.
She didn't argue.
She didn't defend herself. She just sat there, clutching her purse, utterly defeated. Megan stared blankly at the wall. Gerald stared at the floor. Grandma Ruth squeezed my hand. Her voice was low, just for me. "Your grandfather would be proud of you, Whitney." That's when I finally, truly cried. The courtroom was one kind of reckoning. The IRS? That was an entirely different beast. 6 weeks after the small claims hearing, Gerald opened his mailbox. Inside, a plain white envelope. No flashy logo, just a return address in Austin, Texas, and the ominous words Internal Revenue Service printed in small, unassuming type. He tried to tell Carol it was probably a mistake. It wasn't. The IRS launched a full audit on 3 years of Gerald's tax returns. $43,200 in unreported rental income. Not declared. Not filed. Not a single mention on any 1040 he'd ever submitted. Marco laid out the math for me over the phone clinically, like a doctor reading lab results. Unpaid federal tax on that unreported income? Approximately $11,000. Penalties for failure to report. Another $4,000 to $6,000. Interest accrued over 3 years? Roughly $2,000 more. Total estimated liability, just to the IRS, somewhere between $17,000 and $22,000. And remember, that was just the IRS. Gerald still owed me the $10,000 from small claims, and I hadn't even filed the civil court case for the rest yet. He was forced to hire a CPA, a certified public accountant, to navigate the audit. That alone cost him $4,000. Gerald Warren, the man who wouldn't spend $40 on a can of paint for the water stain on my ceiling, was now hemorrhaging money, writing checks to accountants, watching his savings account bleed dry. Jamie later told me Gerald tried to borrow money from Uncle Rick. Rick, who'd been so quick to judge me, simply said, "No, I've got my own bills." Gerald, the man who told me to figure it out, was now the one who couldn't. Word travels fast in families, but it travels even faster in neighborhoods. Cousin Jamie, God bless that kid, didn't name names on Facebook, but she didn't have to. Her post was blunt. "Some people learn that my house, my rules doesn't work when the law has different rules." 47 reactions. 12 comments. Everyone in the family knew exactly who she meant. Aunt Sandra? She went completely silent. The woman who'd texted me, "Just be happy for your sister," 2 weeks earlier, now had absolutely nothing to say. She didn't call Gerald.
She didn't call me.
She just vanished into that convenient, comfortable silence people retreat to when they realize they've backed the wrong horse. Uncle Rick stopped coming over for poker night. But the neighborhood? That was the part Gerald truly didn't see coming. Mrs. Patterson, my accidental witness, the azalea lady, the woman who'd watched him perform his tough love, while my life sat on wet grass? She talked. Not maliciously, but factually. She told the Hendersons next door. The Hendersons told the Coopers. By the end of the month, half the block knew Gerald Warren had locked his rent-paying daughter out of her home and then been served by the sheriff in his own driveway. Gerald wasn't invited to the summer block party. First time in 11 years. Carol, my mother, stopped leaving the house for 2 weeks, having groceries delivered. And then, the final domino fell. Tyler Brooks, Megan's fiancé, the car salesman with a home office in my old room, started asking questions. "Maybe we should get our own place," he told Megan. "I don't want to start a marriage in a house with this kind of drama." Megan and Tyler postponed their wedding. Not because of money, not even because of me, specifically, but because Tyler didn't want to begin his life in a house that had, quite literally, become a courtroom exhibit. Megan, of course, blamed Gerald. My mother called me on a Thursday. Her voice sounded 10 years older, fragile. "Can we talk? Just us, please." We met at a coffee shop off Route 6. Neutral ground. Public enough that neither of us could completely fall apart. She was already in a booth when I arrived, nursing a mug she clearly wasn't drinking from. "Your father is struggling," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "The IRS thing, it's eating him alive." I wrapped my hands around my own mug, the warmth a small comfort. "He threw my entire life on the lawn, Mom," I said, my voice flat. "While I was saving lives at the hospital. He thought you'd understand. He thought I'd be quiet. There's a difference." Carol stared into her coffee, her eyes red-rimmed, but the tears had already fallen. Probably in the car. Probably alone. She looked like a woman who'd spent 30 years meticulously building a life on someone else's unstable foundation and had just felt the very first, terrifying crack. "I should have said something," she finally whispered. "I was afraid of him." "I know you were," I conceded. I'm not saying that to make an excuse. I'm just telling you what's true." "I believe you, Mom," I said, my voice softer. "But you still let it happen." She started to cry. Quietly, the way people cry in coffee shops. Tucked in, contained, embarrassed. I didn't reach across the table. Not because I was punishing her, but because comfort for me right then would have been a reprieve she hadn't earned. She needed to sit in it. "I love you," I told her. "I do. But I can't come back to a house where my worth is measured by how much I give up." She wiped her eyes with a crumpled paper napkin, then looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in what felt like forever. "When did you get so strong?" she asked, bewildered. "I'm not strong, Mom," I replied, a tired smile touching my lips. "I'm just done paying the price for being easy to ignore." Maybe she was finally seeing me. Maybe for the very first time. 3 months later, I signed a lease. A real one. My name printed on every single page. A 1-bedroom apartment, just 6 blocks from St. Mary's. Ground floor. 12 minutes to work. Rent. $890 a month. Less, significantly less, than what I'd paid my father. The $10,000 small claims check cleared the same week. I used it for first and last month's rent, a security deposit, a proper mattress, and a second-hand kitchen table. The rest went straight into savings. My savings. In my name. Under my control. Donna helped me move in. She showed up with her minivan, 3 laundry baskets overflowing with donated kitchenware, and a 6-pack of ginger ale. "Champagne's for closers," she grinned. "And you're not done yet." I set up the bedroom first. Hung the curtains Donna found at Goodwill. Arranged my nursing books on a shelf that didn't belong to anyone else. Saturday afternoon, there was a soft knock. I opened the door to find Grandma Ruth standing there, holding a lamp. It was brass, beautifully old, with a green glass shade. The cord had been rewired, probably twice. "This was mine when I first lived on my own," she said, her eyes twinkling. 1967, I want you to have it." I plugged it in that night. It cast a warm, amber circle on my new kitchen table. The kind of light that makes even a small room feel utterly, completely like home. That evening, I sat at my table in my apartment, behind my lock, and ate dinner alone. Leftover soup and toast. Nothing special. But the quiet here? It was different. It wasn't the quiet of being overlooked. It wasn't the quiet of desperately trying to keep the peace. It was the quiet of ownership. $1,200 a month used to disappear into the pocket of a man who refused to see me. Now it pays for a place that is undeniably, beautifully mine. Gerald called on a Sunday night. 7:14 p.m. I almost didn't pick up. Not out of anger, I was honestly past that. It was more like the hesitation before opening a door you've already decided to walk through, knowing what's on the other side. I answered. "Whitney." His voice was different. Not soft. Gerald Warren doesn't do soft, but the sharp edges were filed down. The command was gone. "Hi, Dad." I replied neutrally. "I didn't think you'd go this far," he said, his voice a low rumble. "And I didn't think you'd throw my things on the lawn," I countered, gently but firmly. He exhaled, a long, heavy breath, the kind that carries something immense and painful out. "The IRS wants $22,000, he finally said. He said it the way someone delivers a devastating diagnosis. Flat. Factual. Still in shock. "I'm sorry to hear that, Dad. I really am." "Are you?" he asked, doubt lacing his voice. "Yes. I don't want you to suffer. I never wanted that." More silence stretched between us. I could hear the TV in the background, ESPN, a basketball game. The familiar soundtrack of every evening I'd ever spent in that house. "I hope you figure it out," I said, meaning it. "But I'm not coming back." He didn't say, "I love you." He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He didn't say, "You'll regret this." He just breathed on the other end of the line. "All right," he finally said and hung up. It was, I realized, the most honest word he'd spoken to me in years. Not an apology, not a surrender. Just, "all right." An acknowledgement that the ground had shifted irrevocably, and he couldn't shift it back. I set the phone down and looked at Grandma Ruth's lamp, casting its warm glow on my table. For the first time in months, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I just felt finished. People ask me if I regret it. And yes, I do. I regret the 3 years I spent believing that my silence, my relentless effort, would somehow be rewarded. I regret every single morning I woke up after a grueling night shift, only to make breakfast for a house that treated my labor like air, present, necessary, yet utterly invisible. And yes, I regret the $43,000. Of course I do. But more than the money, I regret the version of myself who thought that if I just tried harder, gave more, complained less, my father would finally look at me the way he looked at Megan. That girl, that version of me, she's gone. I left her on a cold porch step that Tuesday morning in March, still wearing scrubs that smelled of a 14-hour shift. My father isn't a monster. I want to be absolutely clear about that. But he is a man who tragically confused love with control and gratitude with blind obedience. He built a family where his word was absolute, final. And when someone me dared to challenge that legally, calmly, with 36 receipts, his entire kingdom shook. I truly hope he learns the difference someday. But teaching him? That's no longer my job. If you're listening to this, and you're in a house where your kindness is being used as currency, where your silence is someone else's comfort, I want you to hear something nobody ever said to me. Keep your receipts. Know your rights. And remember that setting a boundary with your family isn't betrayal. It's the very first brick you lay when you finally decide to build a life for yourself. I'm sitting at my kitchen table right now, Grandma Ruth's lamp glowing softly. My apartment is quiet. The lock on my door is mine. The locks are mine now. So tell me, honestly, if you were in my shoes, faced with everything I went through, would you have filed those papers? Or would you have tried to keep the peace? Drop a courthouse in the comments if you'd fight for what's yours, or a peace if you would have chosen a different path. And if you know someone who needs to hear the story, please share it with them. More stories like this one are always waiting for you in the description below. I'll see you in the next one.